And if you chose the Queen 10, Joe Stapleton has a message for you.
You blew it.
Welcome back to the PokerStars.net European Poker Tour. It's the final table of the EPT Berlin main event at the Grand Hyatt, hosted by the Spielbank Berlin. In the background there, we can see the final table of the High Roller event. We'll get some updates from that during this level of play. And you can see the audience that have gathered around the final table of the main event. 7 players remain in contention for the title, the trophy, and the first prize of 880,000 euros. These are the 7 players in seat order. New blind level is starting, 80-160 with a 20k ante, and that will put extraordinary pressure on Roman Harold and Pascal Voss. Lasse Frost and Julian Thomas not exactly comfortable, nor is Alexander Helbig. The only players who really can feel like they can play post-flop are Robert Haig and Daniel Guy-Padoun.
You know, James, I saw Daniel Guy-Padoun in the bathroom, and I think he might be pretending to be German. Hear me out. He was speaking German with a guy in the bathroom, nonstop, blah, 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 German, and then all of a sudden at the end, the other guy says, "Good luck" in English, and immediately, without missing a beat, he says, "Thank you."
Wow.
In English.
Well, I can tell you that Dickie Attenborough and Gordon Jackson got shot because of that.
Exactly. And I immediately thought about that. So I don't know about this guy.
He is the chip leader with 7 players remaining. We were all impressed with how he played the first level of the day. Let's get the second level underway. Level 33 of the tournament.
By the way, Daniel Guy-Padoun, all the talk right now, all anybody's talking about, he's stepping it up, playing aggressive, picking up that dead money, working the scared money, working the short stacks.
And let's talk a little bit about the money ladder here, Joe, because obviously we've got a guy with 9 big blinds and a guy with 12 big blinds, each hoping the other busts first, because there is a big jump, of course, between 7th place and 6th place.
Huge jump, actually. The jump between 7th and 6th is 45 grand. So that jump is better than 12th place money. 13th place money. Better than 13th place money.
So a strong argument for sitting back and hoping that the other guy busts first.
I gotta say, I'm a little ticked off. Eugene Kachlov stops by the Russian commentary first.
Oh, I see.
You know what, Eugene, why don't you stay on the east side of the room? We'll handle things over here in the west.
It's the first hand back from the break. Hand number 33 of the final table. Action folded to the Danish player Lasse Frost in the cutoff. He raises to 325,000. Pascal Voss, one of those 2 short stacks, folds. And here comes the chip leader, Daniel Guy-Padoun, with a 3-bet. Looks like $1 million total. 2 stacks of yellow. The yellow chips being 25,000 each. The blues are 5,000.
You know, the phrase is kind of overused. We use it as a joke, but right now, Daniel Guy-Padoun is playing like a boss.
Harold, the short stack, folds the big blind. Action is back on Frost.
Frost lets it go.
And Padoun extends his chip lead. He's now got more than 9 million, 9.3 million to be precise.
Now Padoun's on the button.
Padoun getting close to a 2-to-1 chip lead over the guy who's second on the leaderboard. Sven is very interested in our travel plans, Joe. He says, when you guys go to Monte Carlo, do you fly to Nice and take a cab from there?
Sven, you nailed it. I think I was offered a chance to take a helicopter one time. But I'm cool just to stay on the ground.
It's actually quite a beautiful drive from Nice to Monaco. Kind of feel like you're in the opening sequence of GoldenEye.
There's one time I was in a helicopter in my life, and I was sharing the ride with a family in the back. Mother, father, young girl. And at one point, the helicopter dropped a little bit, which they do sometimes. You know, they just drop, a few feet, but it feels pretty weird. And the girl kind of whelped a little bit. And the pilot said, "Are you okay, sweetie?" And I said, "Well, I'm a little nervous, but I should be fine."
Well, this is an under-the-gun raise from Robert Haig, one of 5 German players at this final table. Amazing achievement for the home nation. They only made up less than a third of the starting field, but the vast majority of the final 7. Decision on Pascal Voss.
Voss has been quiet. And continues being quiet.
Roman Harold, he's the other shorty in the small blind.
He can't play.
And Julian Thomas in the big blind. He folds as well. So raise and take it for the guy who's second in chips, who started the day as chip leader. And a player who is a contender for EPT Player of the Year. And, sorry, but I'm going to claim him. Because Robert, like many German players, has relocated. He has moved to the UK. He now lives in Brighton on the south coast of the country. So, even though the flag is German, I'm going to take him as British.
Very convenient, James.
Patrick Deere says, watching EPT Live to get me in the mood for my own tournament at 3 p.m. today. Good luck in that, Patrick. A reminder, if you want to get in touch, you should tag your tweets EPT Live or email nuts@pokerstars.tv. Tender says, I've missed a lot of the poker, but I'm now watching the EPT Live final table, and good luck to Dutchy Pascal Voss. He's going to need it. Big stacks really putting the pressure on now, but it's Alexander Helbig with an under-the-gun raise here. Raising to 425,000.
Somebody must have got some water on the Russians because they are multiplying.
We sure he's raised that big?
He just doesn't want to get 3-bet.
Is this something you think he's spoken about with his rail during the break? Is this a strategic ploy to avoid being 3-bet, to make his opens bigger?
I mean, if it is, it's a strategy I've not really heard of before.
Well, it's a strategy that Jeff Shulman tried to employ at the final table of the main event in 2009. Phil Hellmuth was actually on his coaching staff, and his big thing was that if you want to avoid getting 3-bet, you make your opening raises bigger. It didn't work, but that's what he was trying to do. He was actually advising Jeff to actually open to 4x at the final table.
Well, this got called. It didn't get 3-bet, so if that's the intent, so far it's worked. 8-6-8, 2 diamonds. I mean, I think personally, if you have a decent hand, you want your opponents 3-betting you a little light. And Haig has decided to donk lead this flop.
Interesting.
400,000. See, and I think when you raise this big, you kind of give away a little bit about your hand, because if you have a monster, if you have aces or kings or even, you know, ace king, you're probably not going to raise so big. When you have a really strong hand, you want to get 3-bet. You want to get the money in. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good read by Haig, whatever he's got here. I like the bet. I like the fact that, why so serious? That's what I like to ask when someone raises much bigger than you'd expect them to before the flop. And, you know, you wouldn't expect that board to connect with the kinds of hands that you're, like, afraid of getting 3-bet with your king queens and your jack 10, you know, your Broadway stuff that you don't really want to get it in with before the flop. So that completely missed all those hands. Haig decides to take a stab at it, and, you know, for 400K, which is less than half the pot, but a big chunk of hell big stack. And he takes that pot down with not much of a fight.
By the way, among the 17 Russians in the room at the moment is 9th place finisher Dashkin Aliyev, who went out on the final table bubble last night, and currently commentating alongside Ilya Gorodetsky and Eugene Kachalov is our 8th place finisher Roman Koronev, first man out from the final table today. And Sven, you're confused. Says Russians multiply like when you feed gremlins after midnight. No, as Joe correctly referenced, gremlins multiply when you get water on them, when you get them wet. Feed them after midnight is when they turn from mogwai into gremlins.
Correct.
No, your 1980s pop culture.
Idiot. Just kidding. Mark writes in to say, ha, love the awkward silence after your helicopter joke, Joe. Hang in there, buddy. I can't believe that the huge audience here didn't go wild at that joke.
Well, the fact that the huge audience is Russian is probably why.
Right.
They have no word for fun, remember? Folded to Haig in the small blind, and he raises.
Friend of mine. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
And all in and a fold.
A friend of mine reminded me of the best part of that story, by the way. Not the best part, but a little epilogue to that story that I forgot to tell. So when the Russian producer says, we have no word for fun, we could say, this day is filled with many positive emotions. Our producer then says to him, well, what do they say on TV in Russia? And he says, I don't know. I don't own television.
Chris Dougal tweets to say, don't see this bullying tactic enough these days. Paduna executing it perfectly. If he didn't have shades on, I would be railing him. I don't have a problem with the sunglasses, I'm going to be honest with you.
Wait, you don't have a problem with the sunglasses?
I mean, personally, I'm not a huge fan of sunglasses at the table, but it doesn't make me actively anti-rail someone.
I wouldn't anti-rail someone, but I would probably just kind of have a little bit more respect for someone that plays without them.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Duo says, just woke up to watch EPT Live, just got out of bed. Thank you guys for the coverage, and go, Thomas, go. Action on Julian Thomas, sit and go specialist.
Having my first energy drink of the week. It's a poor man's Red Bull, which probably gives you cancer twice as fast.
Smells nasty. I can only imagine what it tastes like. So Thomas has raised to 350,000.
And that raise gets through. I also saw Roman Harold in the halls during the break, and he was just strutting through like he owned the joint. He did not look like a man who had 8 big blinds. Is that even right? Does he have like 7 now? These blinds, the chip counts, I'm sure, are accurate. He's got 1.17 million. I don't know how to divide 160 into something. That's just awkward.
I'll bring up the leaderboard after this hand. Let the graphic system do the mathematical calculations for you, Stapes.
Is there anyone at the final table named Jay? Are they speaking about Julian Thomas, maybe? Because we just got spammed by Marius. Who wins the EPT today? JJJ. Bus 7 players on his way. JJJ. He is the sickest dudes, they say. JJJ. He 6-bet shoves without delay. JJJ. Makes others throw ace-king away. JJJ. Yeah, good luck with that. Tonight we drink. Who's going to pay? JJJ. Okay, Maris. Well, we think you're rooting for Julian Thomas.
If he's not.
Unless his name is Daniel J. Padun. Higgs raised the cutoff. Frost calls out of the small blind.
Voss folds the big, so heads up to the flop.
Again, this is an interesting spot for a call. Frost well covered by Haig. Ace-king 3. Now, unless Frost is calling with just, baby aces, you wouldn't expect him to have an ace in his hand too often. Maybe small suited aces sometimes. Frost checks.
Haig does not continue, he checks behind.
Is it because he missed that flop?
Queen of spades on the turn.
Maybe for a little pot control. If he does have an ace in his hand, he's a little afraid that maybe Frost did catch some piece of this.
Oh, Bastian wants to clarify that Julian Thomas's nickname on Poker Strategy is Jay Gatsby. That's why the song involves reference to Jay.
I missed that, James. What was it?
Thomas's nickname is Jay Gatsby. That's why they're calling about Jay.
So, okay, Julian Thomas. So I assumed it was the right guy, but for the wrong reason. Frost is checked again on the turn. If Haig had somehow flopped the flush draw, he really should have bet the flop, probably. Boy, he looks like he's breathing awfully hard, too. He might have an absolute monster here. I really hope he's chewing gum, otherwise those are some gnarly mouth tells.
So a delayed continuation bet from Haig. And the fold from Frost. I'll say a quick hello to Eden, who says, you guys have an Albanian audience too. Good commentary, by the way, and greetings from Albania. And Todd says, raiding the final table from Key West, Florida. I'm on vacation. Glad it's early here. The wife sleeps in, and everybody's happy. Well, we're happy because we've got a guest commentator in the booth. We welcome the analysis of Dominik Nitsche.
Hello guys, it's good to be back.
Hi, Dominic. How have you done in the side events?
Pretty badly. I
Awkward.
made day 2 in the high roller, and yeah, you know, it's how
One,
it goes
one
sometimes.
bullet only, at least?
Just one bullet, yeah.
Okay.
So Dominik, 5 out of the 7 players remaining are German, although Robert Haig, like you, has relocated. He lives in Brighton, so as far as I'm concerned, he's now playing for the United Kingdom.
Yeah, pretty much. Robert Haig is actually the only player I know at this table, so yeah, I've played with him a lot. He's a really good player, and I think he's a favorite to take it down.
Well, during the first level, we saw Daniel Gaperdon really come alive and really start to boss the table around, and he's got a strong chip lead at the moment.
I try not to do this to James too often. However, when James says Daniel Gaperdon, it makes me chuckle every single time. I have to hold the microphone away from my mouth.
How would a proper German
That's what
person
I want to know how
say the name?
Dominic's going to say the name. And I'm so sorry to do this to you, James, because I would rarely try to correct you and put you on blast in front of everybody.
I'm going to go with what Dominik
It
says.
wasn't that wrong. It's Daniel Gay Pidun.
Pidun, okay. It's better to me than Gay Puddin. Pidun.
Looks like he's going to defend his big blind here, facing a button raise from Lasse.
Let's call him Daniel.
And a king, queen, jack flop with 2 hearts. For the most part, Pidun has been 3-betting, late position raises. Here he just defends.
I see, like, if he just defends here, that's just a board that just has to hit. I mean, it has to hit his range, you know. Like 3 face cards, yeah.
You think if he's not 3-betting, it hits his range more?
Yeah, because he's like way more likely to play high cards in that spot than he is to play low cards. Like, he might 3-bet a hand like 6-7 or like 7-8, but he would rather like call a hand like King 10 or Queen Jack. You know, because it hits so many better top pairs.
Check on the flop. Pidun checks the turn.
Well, I think they're all really quite shallow here. It's not like they... I mean, it's probably just because the final table bubble just took so long. That's why no one has any real chips here.
Exactly.
Did you watch any of the final table bubble, Dominik?
I was still playing side event. I was in the 2K.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I heard it was painful.
And obviously they're now suffering the consequences of that.
Yeah,
now.
because everyone's really shallow, yeah. And
Would you love to be on a final table bubble like that? I mean, would you just...
I would probably just be playing every hand for, you know, for as long as I can and try to win. But sometimes it's just not possible, and here the hand just goes check, check all the way. And, who wins this spot?
Well, ace-9 is the hand for Lasse Frost. And Pidun shows 6-5.
5s are good.
So that's the kind of hand that you thought he was more likely to 3-bet with than just call.
Well, yeah, because I kind of didn't see the stack size at this point, because I was just assuming they were like reasonably deep, like 30 big blinds or more. Actually, they're just like 20-something big blinds deep, and yeah.
Well, Pidun's much better than that.
Yeah, Pidun is, but Frost isn't, and the effective stack size is what matters here. Like the short stack.
Of course.
Yeah, so Pidun is... Sorry, Frost is on... Yeah, not that many big blinds, you know, like 15. Yeah, no, then I think Pidun definitely played the hand fine. You know, I would play 6-5 the same way.
I mean, look at this. Half the table has fewer than 20 big blinds, and Lasse Frost, Pascal Voss, and Roman Harold are kind of in shovel-fold mode at the moment. But, of course, there is that laddering aspect as well. I mean, you know what the money jumps are like on EPT final tables, Dominik.
Absolutely, even though I never get to play one of them, I do plenty of commentary.
Yeah.
There's only like 150 big blinds in play total, it looks like.
See, like, for the viewers at home, maybe we should point out that EPT finals are usually not this short. You know?
No, it's not the fault. I mean, and this is something
This structure is amazing.
Absolutely, and this is something Neil Johnson was very keen to stress yesterday when he joined us. And here we see Pidun, small to big, shove on Harold and put him to the test. Harold folds, more chips for the chip leader.
Yeah, Pidun doesn't have to look at his cards at this point, kind of.
He's just moved over 10 million in chips, by the way.
Yeah.
And he actually had a hand. He had ace-king.
I mean, he can put so much pressure on Harold in the big blind there, you know. It's really tough for him to have a hand that can call.
And we can see the money jumps there, obviously huge, and that's very much going to be a factor with these three guys who are super short, just hoping that, you know, if I can just wait, if I can get 5th place, wow, you know, that's 90,000 euros I've just made.
Yeah, pretty much, but the way the players here are pretty good, I would say, you know, there's a fair balance between it being kind of top-heavy, but it's also, like, you know, lettering is also worth it. So in some tournaments you play, like, they're way too top-heavy, and therefore you just play for the win. And in some other tournaments, you know, they're not top-heavy at all, and you just have to make the money. But here, I think EPT did a great job again. Very, very good payouts. Yeah.
And just going back to the structure aspect, and again, just echoing what Neil Johnson was saying yesterday, EPT event host, it's not just the fact that they were playing quite tight, it's also they were taking so long over their decisions. It just burned so much time off the clock. So they've created this situation for themselves.
I think half the guys were expecting someone to go broke at the other table, even though they were 9-handed.
Yeah. I heard about the one Finnish guy who take like 90 seconds before he looked at his cards or something.
Yeah, that was at the start of the day yesterday.
Yeah,
that was when they were around 16 remaining. And that's when we saw one of the more interesting rulings I'd ever seen on the EPT.
Yeah, it's a really difficult decision. I wouldn't know what the correct ruling is.
Where Lucas said, look, if you keep continuously tanking like this, I'm going to start looking at your hands after you fold them, and if I see it wasn't a tough decision for you...
But I don't really think you can do that. That's just...
Well, we found out that that's like kind of a... I don't want to say an idle threat, but it's a thing that rarely has to be enforced.
Yeah, I know.
From what I understand, it's only
like,
been done twice.
how would you enforce it? Are you just going to tell him that his fold there is unreasonable? You
Well...
know? It's a player's decision. He paid the buy and he can do whatever he wants, pretty much, right?
Well, Neil Johnson gave us a real example. Apparently it happened in San Remo.
Of course it did in Italy.
And a player was taking a huge amount of time over his decisions. They looked at his hand and he'd taken forever to think about it with 5 deuce offsuit. The next hand, same thing again. Looks around the table, counts his chips, thinks forever, and folds 6-3 offsuit. And they came to the conclusion that you're just stalling.
Yeah, well, but what are you gonna do to punish him? It's not impossible for someone with 6-3 to just say all in. We've all seen it. Yeah, all you can do is really just put him on the clock immediately.
I think that was another sort of answer that Neil has, that sometimes they were putting players on a 10-second clock.
That is fair, I think, yeah.
So Haig raised under the gun. Pidun called on the button. Check, check on the flop.
Check, check on the turn, right?
And now
Correct.
4 clubs on board.
Well, club check. How big is my club?
Big enough, apparently.
$325,000, the bet from Pidun.
I mean, what's the smallest club you could bet with here? A 9? A 10?
It's really difficult to say. Because I really just don't think Haig has much at all. Like, I don't really think he has anything that I can even call here. Like, if Haig had, like, you know, like, the thing with Haig's range is opening from under the gun. He doesn't really have any of the low clubs. So, it's, yeah, no, he probably just doesn't have anything, you know.
Yeah.
And if Daniel has a hand like 5, so the 5 of clubs, he's definitely just going to check behind, because really, what's he getting called by? He might try to go for the small bet there, but it's really thin, and I don't really think he's getting called.
Pidun up to 10.7 million. By the way, your questions for Dominik Nitsche are welcome. Email nuts@pokerstars.tv, tweet using the hashtag EPTLive. Ed says, Dominik, are you properly rolled for all these live events, or do you rely on satellites, staking agreements, or selling pieces to reduce variance?
Oh dear. Truth is, I'm doing alright, and yes, I guess I'm properly rolled for it. I'll occasionally sell pieces for like the big ones, you know, like 10Ks or higher, or like the big 5K tournaments, you know. Like, sometimes I will sell pieces. I didn't for this one, I did for the high roller. And yeah, and I also always play satellites. I'm actually a pretty successful satellite player, and I win my way into most EPTs.
Nice.
Do you only sell pieces to friends, or would you take it to the general public as long as you had a way of getting the money ahead of time?
It's usually just friends, because it's so much easier. You know,
It's not worth the hassle, right?
Not really. I can just like ask some of my friends, like some of the well-known German players, and just be like, you know, do you want this? I'm playing the high roll. You want a piece? And they're like, okay, sure. And then it's gone. And it's just so much faster. And I know I'm getting the money. So
Herald all in.
Herald's all in, yeah.
Folded him on the button. He shoves for 830k.
Looks like Jay Gatsby's interested.
Jay Gatsby. And Alexander is a really good sit and go player from what I've heard, so given that the final table is so shallow, he's going to be playing it really well, I think. Because he has the most experience playing, like, you know.
Wow, he reshoves and insta-called by Robert Haig.
Just wakes up with a monster there. Looks like ace-king.
So Haig has 2 players covered, and there is the potential here for a double elimination.
I mean, that's just very lucky for Haig.
Let's bring the hands into the middle. Let's see what they've got.
That looks like ace-queen for Haig, doesn't it?
Ace-5.
Ace-5 or ace-queen. Sorry, ace-king or ace-queen, it doesn't really matter. Both of them are...
Well, I think Harold is ace-king.
Really?
No, you're kings.
What? Is that Harold's hand there with kings, really?
So a great spot here for Harold to potentially triple up with kings.
Wow, he just wakes up with kings with like 6 big blinds.
If kings hold, no one goes broke.
And is that true?
No, Thomas would go broke because Haig's got him covered.
My bad.
Thomas got it in with ace-5, remember, and is dominated by Haig's ace-queen. So there are 2 aces still in the deck.
Flop is Jack of spades, 6 of diamonds, 7 of clubs.
Safe flop for the kings.
Roman is still ahead.
5's got runner, straight draw.
So we have got a side pot, of course, between Thomas and Haig.
37 of diamonds.
Now for Jack hits, no one goes broke, right?
Yeah.
Does not, though.
So Roman Harold triples up. The side pot goes to Robert Haig, and we see the elimination of Julian Thomas in 7th place.
I think I saw Cengiz Aluzu there, by the way.
Yeah, that was Cengiz.
Thought I had dodged him.
And he triples up to 16 big blinds. Wait, that's not correct, is it?
So no double elimination, but Julian Thomas is out in 7th. Wins himself 110,000 euros.
You just get really unlucky there. I mean, that's just... Getting it in like this for him is just a massive disaster. Because, I mean, if he gets overcalled there, like, my point is basically that with his ace-5, I mean, like, yeah, maybe he doesn't have the best hand, but when he gets overcalled, then Robert Haig definitely is supposed to have the strongest hand there. And like that, the short stack just wakes up with kings. It's just very unlucky. I feel kind of bad for Julian.
So Harold now with 16 big blinds. Germany 1, 2, 3, 4 on the leaderboard. Lasse Frost and Pascal Voss still both at risk with 13 and 10 big blinds respectively.
And assuming Pascal goes out next, he just laddered up. Over 20,000.
We're going to take a brief break from the main event. We're going to go down to the floor and join Rick Dacey, staff writer at the PokerStars blog. Let's get an update on the 10K High Roller. Live updates obviously available on the blog, but Rick's going to tell us what's happened so far. What have they been playing for? About an hour and a half, Rick?
Yeah, about that, James. We're right in the thick of the action at the moment. There's a big pot going on between Griffin Benger, who's a current chip leader, and Max Likov, who's probably in 2nd or 3rd alongside Martin Cabral. So if we go and take a look at that action now, it's on the river on a very dangerous looking board. Benger has already checked, and the action is on Likov. As you can probably see there, it's a Queen Diamond, King Diamond, 7 club, 3 diamond, ace, a club board. This, has the potential to be a very big pot. That looks like close to 200,000 bet in there, about 187 in fact. Action on Benger.
And obviously they started 7-handed at the start of the day, Rick. Have there been any eliminations? Are we still playing 7-handed?
Yeah, we just lost James Mitchell maybe about half an hour ago. So he's bust out for just over 50,000, I believe, losing ace-jack to ace-queen. Lim is alongside Yoni Yokomainen as their kind of short stacks. Next play out 68,000. Winner gets 429,000. Just going to have a chat with Rich Ryan, who's been following the action here. So, Rich, what's been going on?
Well, yeah, the day started with an elimination of James Mitchell. It's funny, they all came in talking about flights. Yoni actually had a flight around 2 or 3 p.m. Okay. He actually brought his luggage, and excuse me if I jump out here because the hand's going on. But it was actually James Mitchell who had a flight at 7 p.m. tonight to bust first. Ace-Jack versus Philip Couture's Ace-Queen. Ace-Jack unable to improve. And Griffin Banger's taking the lead. He's actually got good position. He's got good position on Martin Cabral, obviously. And with Max Lykov on his left, you would expect a lot of fireworks from those two. And they actually played a pretty large pot where King High beat King High on the river.
And there's another big pot going on right now.
Yeah.
If, like, Likov wins this pot, does he become chip leader?
I think they'll be pretty much level at around 1.5 apiece. Maybe Lykov will get a nose ahead, but everyone's really playing carefully because Yoni's so short. You know, ICM implications. Yoni's only got 10 big blinds, so you don't want to play a massive pot or almost get knocked out when there's a 12K jump coming when Yoni is probably going to get that sixth place finish.
Sure. I thought these high rollers didn't care about the money, though.
Yeah, it's really not that life-changing, but, you know, money's money.
Yeah, well, you know, best part of €500,000 on the line here for the winner, so it's pretty exciting stuff, and we'll come back to you later, guys.
Thank you very much indeed, Rick, and remember you can follow Rich Ryan and the rest of the Live Updates team on the PokerStars blog with hand reports and all the latest news from that high roller tournament. Back in the main event at our six-handed final table, chip leader Daniel Gay Padoon has opened with a raise to 320,000. Just Lasse Frost in the big blind left.
I think Eric asked a good question here in the email, Dominik. I've noticed that the short players still have been... Hold on, we got it all in. We'll get to that question in a second.
Frost shoving for just over 2 million.
I mean, he's just probably just going to get this through like all the time because, you know, Daniel's going to be opening so wide and, yeah. But at the same time, he can't really be shoving too loose because there's Pascal Voss with a stack way shorter than his. So I think his shove is going to get a whole lot of credit here, and he's just going to win.
Right, because you tend to think that he's not getting his money in unless he thinks he's going to double up.
You shouldn't really, you know. There's a big pay jump coming up, and it just seems silly to just like reshove super loose. Even if you get the shove through, you're still the second short stack, you know. So like you haven't really done that much.
It's just got to be a hand so good you can't resist. You just got to get it in.
Yeah, pretty much. It's gonna be quite good. You know, it doesn't have to be super premium, but let's just say he's not folding eights there or something. You know, eights just have to get in.
All right, back to Eric's question. I've noticed that the short players still have been raising and three betting, even though they're at 15 to 20 big blinds. What is your thought on that? Is it something that comes with the table being this shallow?
I mean, generally, like, it's fine to raise with like 20 to 15 big blind stacks. Less than that, you usually just want to shove. And three betting of less than 20 big blinds is something that I don't really like, because in general, it's a mistake. Especially like with the ICM considerations, you really just want to put the pressure back on. You want to be the one shoving, you want to be the one saying all in. And even if you have the best hand, given how the payouts work, given how the whole payout ladder works, you really want to be the first one all in. You don't want to be calling all in. So I don't really see why you're, you know.
Well, talking mistakes, Dominik, what do you think about this? Ben Newman says, trying not to be results orientated, but isn't Julian Thomas better off just calling the six big blind shove and then reassessing if Haig then reshoves?
I'm not quite sure. How much did Julian have behind? Like it just all depends on stack sizes, really.
I believe he starts the hand with around 2.2, 2.4 million.
And the shove was for?
Six bigs.
Six bigs, which is 800K,
yeah.
So... No, at the point where you're putting in like a third of your stack, there's no reassessing the situation, you know. You just want to go all in at this point and just shut the big blind out. Really, there's just too much money in there. And yes, it sucks if you get called, but even if you get called, then you're most likely still going to make the extra pay jump, you know, because Robert Hike has a very strong hand. And if you have an ace there, you know you're pretty much never drawing that. You know, he still had 3 outs to beat. Yeah, he had 3 outs to beat the ace queen. That's, you know, that's not bad in a pot this big.
So this is hand 46 of the final table, with 6 players remaining from the 912 who started. Wasser Frost on the button. Moves all in.
You know, he really doesn't want to be raising into the big stack here. That's, you know, then it comes back to what I was just talking about. If he raises here and Daniel decides to shove all in, he's in an awful, awful spot. So really what you want to do here is play kind of tight from the button and then just shove like all of your hands, really.
Right, you basically want to make it so that
yeah. You don't want
Pidun has to wake up with a monster to call you.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, like, if he calls, you know, like if you raise and he calls, that's also going to be really tough for you to play. Because like he can check raise you on the flop with like all kinds of hands, and then your tournament life is on the line. And then again, there's like another 9 big blind or 8 big blind stack, and you just can't, you know.
For folks that are kind of new to something like this, you said he can check raise you on the flop with all kinds of hands, and I think when you guys do, like.
Or he can reshove you all in pre-flop. It's the same idea.
Well, when we think about poker, typically, it's kind of like with the impression that you're going to miss the flop most of the time.
That is correct, yes.
So when you say, oh, he can just check raise you on the flop, again, it's sort of like in blackjack where you're assuming the next card off the deck is going to be a face card. You kind of assume most of the time, if you don't have a pair to begin with, that you're going to miss the flop.
Yeah, so if they're both missing the flop, usually the more aggressive player is going to win the pot. And given a spot like this where you're really short, and given the ICM pressure on the short stack, he's really unlikely to win the hand there if Pidun plays well. Like if Pidun flops a gut shot, he's going to check raise you, and yeah.
Here comes Voss. Harold eyeballing the stack. I kind of feel like most of the time when these guys don't know, they just have an absolute call, which usually ends up being a fold.
Yeah, I mean, generally that's not a bad strategy because it pays off to be kind of careful here. Like, not risk too many chips unless you're very certain you have the best hand.
Harold does know that Voss would probably have to move in with a fairly wide range. Once it's folded to him on the button. Voss all in for 1.18 million. Harold with almost 3 million to start the hand. He calls.
So Voss at risk.
So the king, yeah.
Harold calls with King Jack, has Jack 10 dominated.
Voss in horrible shape here.
I mean, you can't really blame someone for taking that long with King Jack there, because, you know, there's so much money on the line, but generally this should just be a fist pump, snap call, and, you know, because King Jack is just, like, so far ahead of that guy's range that you just get a call. Like, you dominate him so often there.
Jack 10 does flop a gut shot.
A bit of hope for Pascal Voss.
Now Pascal picked up extra outs. 9 for a gut shot or a 10. And a turn card. Turn is it.
Turn to Jack, that's not enough.
Counselor Deanna Troy is sensing that you want a 9 or a 10.
And the river card.
The river is a 7, so that's it for Pascal Voss.
For a
Split pot.
Oh, it's a chop!
Split pot.
It's a chop!
You didn't know that? Oh, man. Luca was clearly the only person who realized what the hell was going on there.
I didn't notice the other 7 on board. Well, you know what they say, Dominik. Everyone loves a chop pot.
2 pairs,
Chop
jacks
pot.
and 7s with an ace kicker.
That was anticlimactic.
Luca explains it to all of us. Oh!
2 pair.
Oh, 7s and jacks with an ace kicker. Now I understand. No change.
P-Dune is just in an amazing spot here. Like, he can put so much pressure on everyone,
And he has been for the most part.
yeah, and then he's just playing smart and solid poker, you know. Like,
So if you're Pascal, do you feel like you're super free rolling right now?
I guess, right?
P-Dune goes through the formality of looking at his cards before raising.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. He's just gonna be raising super wide here. It's pretty close to any 2 cards, maybe even any 2 cards here.
360,000. He's got another big stack at the table in the big blind, but Robert Haig is not going to take him on.
Roberto tweets in, I think not meant for our stream, but I like it. Hanno splitato.
Are you setting a precedent, Joe, that we now have to read all the foreign language tweets as well?
No, I just couldn't. I know what that one means. So you saw Luca speaking to Roman Harold at the start of that hand. And I guess what happened was Robert Haig didn't realize he was the big blind, folded his hand, but they ended up giving his hand back to him because there had been no action yet. It was nice.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think you're going to get that all the time.
It doesn't really matter much because someone's just going to raise, you know, like everyone sees it. And
Would have been a great spot for everyone else to limp.
nah, not really.
This time from the cutoff, Daniel Gate P-Dune raises. Harold folds the button. Haig folds the small. Helbig in the big blind also folds. He's just going to keep on chipping up.
Yeah, this is pretty much what's going to happen for the next 2 to 3 hours. I mean, maybe not as long. If we get rid of the short stacks pretty quickly, then we might just be getting heads up. You know, if Robert gets heads up against Daniel, then it's going to turn into a real poker tournament again. Right now, though, it's just Daniel putting the pressure on and winning most of the hands.
We've addressed this several times, but I'll handle it again because I appreciate we've got new viewers joining us all the time. Denia says, did they roll back the blinds for the final table? If they didn't, why not?
I think the right question is, why would they?
I think because the precedent has been set. It happens at so many major tournaments and it happens on other tours. So people have come to expect that now, that we have to give the players more play at the final table. Well, they had the opportunity. They let the time run off the clock yesterday. They took 5 hours to get from 9 to 8.
Yeah, pretty much. I agree. You know, like there's no reason to roll back the clock at all because the structure in an EPT is so good that like the tournament's just going to play out.
I will say that in some of the other tournaments where they do it, I think their original structure maybe isn't as good.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I can see it a little more in those cases. But in this case where, I mean, this structure is really slow and really good. And, yeah, it's only the player's own faults.
I mean, at some point, a poker tournament just has to end. You know, like, poker tournaments can't go on forever.
Also, I mean, let's say you were in that situation last night, Dominik, nine-handed, as you say, you're going to be putting the pressure on, you're going to be raising a lot. Say during that time you build up a massive stack, how annoyed are you going to be if they then take the pressure off the shorties by rolling back the blinds a couple of levels?
Exactly, like, if you're in a spot like Daniel here, you're just going to run the table over, and that's a lot easier if there are lots of short stacks. Because like, they fear that their tournament life is at risk, and at any point they play a hand. And if your tournament life isn't at risk, then there's like very little ICM pressure.
Johnny says, I think Padoon needs more space on the table.
Yeah, I think so too.
I imagine that during the next break we might see a bit of colouring up. I'm hoping that in the next level we will see the debut of the green and black chips, the 100k chips. So Padoon raising under the gun +1 to 360,000. Called by Haig on the button. Padoon continues the flop for 320k.
Yeah, you kind of expect Padoon to just c-bet this board like all the time. It's probably not a good idea because this board just... Why does it say King Deuce King on the screen and it's actually King Deuce Queen?
The answer to that is it's been a long week.
Okay. Yeah, a King Deuce Queen board just smashes Haig's range here. Like, he should probably just check fold this. But, you know, like sometimes people just get a little over aggressive when they have the chip lead and they just blindly continuation bet. But really, he's just giving money away with this bet because he's never getting the fold. Haig is just too good of a player to just fold there.
So check, check on the turn. 4 of diamonds on the river.
I mean, Haig definitely just has a hand that can go to showdown here, like an ace-queen, you know, maybe an ace-jack, like a king-10 suited kind of hand. Like, there's plenty of hands Haig can have there, and I just expect him to, you know, if he can beat, like, queen-jack, or if he has exactly queen-jack, I expect him to bet the river. And, yeah, if he doesn't, he's just going to check. He might even bet a hand as weak as a king 10 here or something.
He's probably going to bet kings too, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't have that many kings because like most of his kings just turn into 2 pair. You know, king queen 2 pair, king jack 2 pair. King 10 is one option. He might not even have that. You know, he only has it if it's suited, I think. So that's 4 combinations of that. He doesn't have ace king, but he might. You know, like this slight possibility he has ace king, but probably not.
Padoon gives it up.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
By the way, those of you looking to play another EPT Live free roll, there will be a tournament later this evening. Registration hasn't opened yet, so no sense in asking for the password at this time. Should remind you there's a big online tournament tomorrow on PokerStars, the Red Spade Open, a $55 buy-in, a $1 million guaranteed prize pool, plus bounties on members of Team Pro, plus bounties on Joe Stapleton and J. Hartigan, who'll also be playing in that tournament. Lee Jones, head of poker communications at PokerStars, is going to be online in about 35 minutes' time for an off-air version of Lee's Lowdown. And one of the topics Lee is going to be covering is the Red Spade Open. He's also going to be fielding questions about the Monaco Cup and the cash games we're running at the EPT Grand Final in Monaco. So Lee online on Twitter in just over half an hour's time, so get those questions ready.
Now, Dominik, you've mentioned ICM considerations a few times, and we know that that stands for independent chip model, but really what you're saying there is it's basically the strategy you employ when laddering up, right?
Yeah, basically. It just means don't screw up. Don't don't bust. You know.
Well, now because
Don't bust when there's someone shorter than you.
your chips have a dollar amount attached to them at every stage of the tournament.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
this is the stage of the tournament where it is most real and easiest to calculate what they are worth.
Of course it is, yeah. Like, when there's, like the more chips you have, the less each chip is worth. And so like the less chips you have, it just kind of works all together. Like your tournament life is more important when you're the short stack. So don't risk your tournament life at this point.
Well, that's the Frost shoving small to big, not getting a call.
Kohlers writes in to ask, what was the reason for changing the value of the yellow chip from 1K to 25K? There was no yellow chip change in this particular tournament. The red chips were 1K to begin.
I think what
here in
Collins is
Berlin.
referring to is the old chip denominations we used to have. I think a couple of seasons ago, yellows were 1,000 and orange chips were 25,000. But do you know what? Every now and then we get new chips on the EPT. We like to refresh the chips from season to season, and these are the colors we've gone with.
They're pretty nice chips. I like them. And the most important thing about chips is really that you can clearly tell the difference between each and every chip.
And I think that was
And
the
some
problem.
tours just screw up massively.
And I think that was the problem we had, is that the 1Ks were kind of like dark yellow, and then we had the 25Ks which were light orange. And then you had red chips in play as well, and you kind of like sometimes, if you're looking at a distance across a long kind of TV table, it was tough to distinguish. So
I mean,
contrast is important.
That's just all you need, I don't really care what color the chips are as long as it's clear and pretty obvious what they are.
They do have the numbers written on them, by the way, for the player's reference.
Of course, but
Haig wins that pot. Uncontested. Haig slowly closing the gap between himself and Pidun. Haig on 8 million now. Pidun on 9.8 million.
Yeah, the structure, I mean, they have so few chips between them that it's just a matter of winning one or two pots. And Haig just did
probably
that.
one.
And now he won, like, he took down the blinds and antes, he won another one. So now they're pretty close to even.
Yeah, it's 2 pots if it's an unraised pot.
I mean, just looking at this from a theory standpoint, Daniel doesn't have to look at his cards. See if he can either raise this or just go all in immediately, and there's nothing Roman is ever able to do about it.
Pidun does raise to 360.
Yeah, that's a pretty good race here. Roman is just gonna have to fold here like all the time.
Roman shoves. Pidun lets it go.
I mean, I still think Roman needs a pretty decent hand to just risk his tournament life here. I'm not sure how he's been playing. I played with him on day 3, and he was really quite aggressive, and I think he played well.
I can summarize how he's been playing in one word: slowly.
Slowly, okay. Has he been tight, or has he been like really aggressive, or it's
Not today. He hasn't been very aggressive today. I've seen him be aggressive. We've had him at our feature table a decent amount. I think the first day that we had him on the table, it was probably his most aggressive day. Yesterday was his slowest and least aggressive day.
Well, then yeah, he's just not going to be light there at all. Like with Pascal Voss being on the absolute short stack.
I mean, he still has to shove any ace there, right?
I mean, not necessarily. It's just like Pascal Voss is really short, so you have to be really tight. There's a good chance that he would shove any ace, but it's probably not a good play.
Got it.
Because like most people just don't realize how tight you have to be.
It's real, yeah, that's.
Because if you get caught there and lose, it's just, it's so
I
bad
think
for you.
The
Yeah.
term is ICM suicide.
Yeah.
ICM aside. So here's the two big stacks. Pidun in position.
And there's plenty of fans Robert can be defending here, like, and most of them absolutely hit this board.
Haig checks. Pidun checks behind.
I mean, this time Pidun checks behind. Was a smart decision, you know.
Well, especially because he doesn't have to hit this at all.
No, he's also not going to get many folds on that board. Like, if he bets, Haig is just, this just hits his range way too hard.
Haig checks again. Pidun checks again.
8 of diamonds on the river.
I kind of think this take that like Pidun has showdown value here. Because given how he's been playing, like he's been betting a lot, I don't think he's just gonna give up on this hand. Even though it's probably not a bad idea to do so.
And you think if he had just total air, he would have bet at some point already?
I think he'd probably just bet the turn, yeah. But that's just how I think he's been playing. You guys are right, this is very slow. This is a very slow table.
This is nothing compared to yesterday.
What are they thinking about?
I really, Dom, what I think it is that even though, you know, you say Haig's a good player and some of these guys are decent players, this is just such a huge stage for them.
Yeah, that's true. But still, poker is just poker, you know. And Haig probably had a good reason to tank here because he made a big overbet on the river. And he takes it down.
So yeah, it looks like Pidun didn't have much of anything there. It's just doing what he's supposed to do as the chip boss, raising the button. Michael writes in to say, German dominating EPT Berlin and Champions League. Same, same. All right, Dominic. George Clyde Smith has written in for the 11th time today. This time with a question for you.
Okay.
How often would you, Dominik Nitsche, be opening if you were Haig under the gun with Pidun in the small blind?
Quite often. I mean, like, generally people play really tight from the small blind. And, you know, like, the small blind is probably the worst position at the table, so, like, he's really not in a spot where he can do much about it.
He's been 3-betting a small blind a decent amount.
I mean, it's like, he's in the small blind, he's up against another big stack. There's really not much he's going to do. So I'd open a fair amount there. Especially given how the other stacks are, I think it seems like a good spot to open.
Pascal is about to get the red triangle. Harold folds, he just has the blinds to get through. Including your boy, the Haig. $880,000. Haig calls. Helbig still with a decision. He folds.
And we have a non-internet call on the final table of the main event. EPT
Haig shows ace deuce with the ace of diamonds.
That just,
raised only
wait a second.
Pascal shows ace king.
ace king, ace of clubs, king of spades.
I mean, this was for like, what, 6 big blinds?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Ace deuce, ace of diamonds, deuce of hearts.
That's fine.
Once again, Pascal, is our only
So
player.
Voss in pretty good shape here to double up. Has Voss
Aggressive flop.
about to double up. Has Haig dominated.
The flop is
King
of
10-4.
hearts, 10 of spades.
Really
four
good shape
spades.
now for Ace King.
Pascal hits top pair. And he holds the king.
Yeah, this hand's pretty much over.
Haig's going to need to hit running wheel cards.
And a turn card.
There's one of them.
Ooh.
Flops.
So a 3, the only card that can eliminate Pascal Voss. Anything else, and he doubles up.
Of Richard.
We all know what's going to happen.
Get your puke buckets ready.
No.
Flops.
Shaped like a 3, but it's an 8. Pascal Voss
Will double up.
doubles up,
Pascal Voss has been quite patient on his short stack, you know, like,
which he kind of has to do also, right?
yeah, I mean, like, he can't be super tight, because see, even if he doubles up, he's still the short stack.
That's right. Now doubled up to 13 big blinds.
Yeah. It's also funny to see that Roman Harold tripled up a while ago, and he still doesn't, you know, he's still kind of short.
And yeah, look at that. It's 56 big blinds. I mean, there's like 150 big blinds total in play.
Yeah, that's very, very shallow, so I just kind of hope that we get to see some interesting poker and some short stacks get eliminated soon.
Well, I think the heads up should probably be pretty interesting.
Yeah, like three-handed play.
Jorge writes in to say hello from Portugal. Craig says, the table dynamic is definitely changing. Haig looks strongest. Think Pidun should stick to the smaller stacks.
I think Haig is a more experienced player than Pidun. But still, you know, Pidun, he can just put so much pressure on, and I don't think Haig is going to do much about it, really.
I think Haig definitely has skill on his side, though. He seems to know what he's doing out there. Haig on the button with 2 short stacks to his left. Announces all in.
Announces all in, yeah. Seems like a reasonable play. He's applying maximum ICM pressure on the shorter stacks, who both still cover Pascal Voss. So really, they're just very, very unlikely to call off, and they need quite a big hand.
Cruel Intent says in the Dukes of Hazzard, Pascal would be Voss Hog. Helbig folds. Loss of Frost. Also kicks it in. So Robert Haig takes down that pot, applying maximum pressure. Chris asks, will Voss get more respect for his all-ins now he's showed down a big hand, or is he so short that that wouldn't be a factor?
I mean, like, he's so short that he just kind of woke up with an absolute monster there, you know? Like, he should be shoving a whole lot worse. So I don't think it's going to change much. He also showed down the Jack-10, which is obviously a completely fine shove, but it also means that he's not just sitting there waiting for premiums, you know? Like, he's playing a reasonable short stack, and yeah, no, I think he... people are just going to give him credit for being a good enough player.
I mean, he's still going to have to get looked up by little aces.
Yeah, I mean, little aces now become a lot worse of a calling hand because he has more chips. So that also means he's just going to shove less, you know, like less random cards like 7-8.
I just mean an orbit or two from now, it's going to be the same deal all over again.
Yeah, if he gets blinded out and doesn't get any good shoving spots, then yeah.
Pidun's raising under the gun. Looks like he... maybe put out a little too much. Min raise, 320,000.
In general, I think people at this stage should just be min raising, especially Pidun. There's no need to go bigger at all.
he's going to raise and take it.
And Pidun can just be really happy that the short stack doubled up. That's very good for him because he can still put the pressure on now, and that's all good for him. Some more people to pick on. He's going to win lots of small pots.
Unfortunately, producers, I got to narc out on the Russians over here. We just got a tweet that says all the Russians have the free roll password already. That means we're going to give it out soon, I hope. So we're going to I can just give it away at will now. Can't put the free roll password on the screen today, guys, because we're airing in a lot of different places and we can't show the free roll everywhere. However, today's free roll password is Monaco.
Yeah, they could have figured that out.
Probably some people did figure it out on their own. The super sleuths, I like to call them. But Monaco is the free roll password. So Oliver, who knows that all the Russians have the free roll password already, it's Monaco. Justin writes in on the emails to say, I wouldn't want to be an amateur row. Hellbig, Frost, and Voss each have virtually no caches. When sandwiched in between the two guys with experience, Haig and Pidun, heads up would be very interesting. Haig raises button, shoved on by Voss.
Haig raised the button, really?
Oh no, I missed. That's just chips in front. It's just the. Sorry, dude.
Just divines and antis.
Yep.
Yeah, no, Haig's in an early position. Yeah,
Sorry, Haig did raise.
that's correct. But he raised from.
He was not on the button. That's all.
Haig raised from a position where he can be kind of loose. He raised into Daniel Gay's big blind. That's not a terrible spot to raise because they're so deep. And, you know, Daniel can't really do much. You know, he can 3-bet. Okay. But then you can still fold and, you know, if Daniel just calls and they play a regular pot where there's no one's tournament life is at risk. So, yeah, Robert can play the hand, you know, like he usually would with no ICM pressure. Maybe be a little more careful, but it's really not a bad spot to open on the chip leader's big blind when you're so deep. I mean, he has more than 40 big blinds there. That's plenty of room.
Haig folds his hand. Hellbig folds. Over to Frost. The cutoff. Folds. Pascal Voss on the button. Out of here.
And Daniel is going to raise 2. I really don't see him folding.
Now, are you min-raising still small to big?
That's an interesting spot I've been thinking about a lot, and the answer is I'm not sure yet. I like to go a little bigger than min.
My opinion doesn't really matter, but I like to go a little bigger than min, too, when it's small to big.
I mean, truth is, it just kind of doesn't matter at this point. Because, like, when you're so shallow, you just want to risk the fewest chips possible. So I'd maybe just go to, like, 2.2 times the big blind or something like that.
Yeah, just anything that is slightly above the min.
But really, it makes no difference if you think about it. It's just that maybe people fold
it's the
more.
mental thing, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and Roman is in a spot where every big blind matters. Moves all in.
I mean, Daniel's just going to give a little show here just to make sure he doesn't do it next time.
Right.
Oh, he doesn't even do that, but yeah.
Well, that was enough time, I think, to show that he was not folding immediately. You know, you talked about how you think that min raising is the way to go, and earlier we mentioned, I think it was Alexander Hellbig, who made it 4x on one of his hands.
I didn't see that hand. I wish I did. Was there like a particular reason for it?
It was under the gun, and I think it was during a time. My guess was that it was during a time when Daniel was 3-betting a lot, and I just thought like maybe he was just trying to avoid getting 3-bet by Daniel. He ended up getting, I think, shoved on by Haig in the big blind.
And he
folded. I'm not positive that's the way that the hand ran out. I honestly, it's all running together.
That seems kind of silly to raise to 4 times the big blind, because you're just risking so much to win so little that's in the middle. And at the same time, you're just, like, there's absolutely no need for you to go this big. If you raise to 2 times the big blind, with like a 25 big blind stack, it's still possible to get all your money in at some point.
I also think it kind of gives away your hand a little bit, too. I mean, would
Yeah,
you
it
really
does.
make it 4x if you had aces or kings? Probably not.
Probably not. Also, like, would you really make it 4x if you had like 7-8 to steal? Probably not as well. Like, it means you have a decent hand, kind of. But truth is, you're just risking way too much money.
Josh writes in to ask, when does the high roller start? The high roller started about 1 p.m. today. I think they're 6-handed right now, 5-handed maybe. We'll be cutting back and forth if anything super interesting happens over there, but we will not be broadcasting them from our feature table. If you want to find out what is happening in the high roller, be sure you check out the PokerStars blog, PokerStarsblog.com. You can follow them on Twitter as well. Okay, Hugh says, great, make the free roll password something I can't spell. Monaco? Hugh? I'm going to spell it out for you. I realize that not everyone, English isn't everyone's first language. Monaco. I like how the producer clicked his microphone on to try to help me spell Monaco. I got it. Thank you. Monaco, all lowercase. Good luck in the free roll, Hugh. I can barely say the word free roll. I hate it. It's like Robert Haig's going to get a walk in the big blind. Andrew asked, Dom, how much of a role do live tells play in a player's decisions, or is bet sizing, calling ranges, and board runouts the only factors?
No, live tells do matter, I think. Especially if you're playing like some inexperienced live players, like some of the ones we have here. Like there's some stuff you can pick up, and it's quite useful, like sometimes you see someone do something and then you want to be sure what it means. Like I saw someone, he 3-bet me, and I saw something in him, I wasn't sure if it's weak or strong. So I did put in a 4-bet just to see if it's, if it's a tell, like if it's a tell of strength or a tell of weakness. And he 5-bet me right back, so I just folded, and a few hands later I saw the same tell on him, and he had queens on like a 10-high board, and he got all the money in. So yeah, live tells are a lot more important than most players think these days. Like there used to be a time where like all online players were like, oh no, they don't matter and stuff. But like truth is, there are some really obvious live tells.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was specifically, so I won't attribute. But I was out to dinner one night. I think you might have even been at the dinner at the barbecue place at PCA 2 years ago with Scott Seaver and Galen Hall, and I think you were there. And there was a big argument happening whether or not live tells were a myth or a joke.
No, I don't remember that. Maybe I just joined in later or something.
But yeah, but there are a few like really big players who, at least at the time, were like, yeah, live reads aren't that important. I want to thank Steve and Chris, by the way, who wrote in with what actually happened in that 4x hand. Haig called the 4x from the big blind and then donk bet the flop, and Hellbig folded. Which I think it's the same, it's the same thing that you said. You're just risking a lot there, and he could have done the exact same thing and not given away an extra bit.
It basically
big
kind
blinds.
of screams, I don't want to see a flop. I don't want to see a flop.
Right.
So Frost has raised here from under the gun. And everyone else folds.
Yeah, his raise there looks really strong off his short stack, so maybe it is a good spot to raise light from time to time. Obviously, you shouldn't do it all the time, because then people are just going to exploit you. But yeah, it's probably just fine to race there.
I want to say hello to Campbell, who's emailed nuts@pokerstars.tv. I'm writing to you at 1:10 in the morning here in New Zealand. Loving your work. I'm a first-time watcher, discovered EPT Live via the PokerStars client, and am now glued to my PC. May be able to pick up a few tips to help my game. Hello to everyone who's watching EPT Live for the first time. Hope you're enjoying the action, the commentary and the analysis. Do get in touch with us. You can email just like Campbell did, nuts@pokerstars.tv, or you can tweet using the hashtag EPTLive. Only got 11 minutes on the level, by the way. Blinds are then going to go up to 100, 200 with a 30k ante.
Pascal seems like he's got something he's thinking about under the gun.
So if we get to the next blind level without any significant movement in the stacks, both Pascal and Alexander are going to be playing around 10 bigs apiece.
It looks like there's something about to happen here. Yeah, he's moving all in for... Yeah.
Folded by one bar Lasse Frost in the big blind, and he also folds.
Jordan Brown writes in to ask, what's a donk bet? And I'm going to let Dominik handle. This is one of the ones I know, Dominik.
Well, then go for it. Go for it.
A donk bet is when you lead into the pre-flop aggressor or to the last aggressor.
Correct.
Typically, you're going to donk betting the flop means when you call a raise before the flop and then you bleed out rather than checking to the raiser. And it makes it sound like it's a terrible thing. It's generally not a move that you're going to make, but it's not always bad.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to do it, and like the term donk bet just,
it's a little misleading.
Yeah, but it's usually just used because a lot of weaker players do it. Especially in 3-bet pots, you see like a lot of weak players just lead into the raiser, and then fold when they raise. Like you see that everywhere. So yeah, usually people who donk bet a lot are actually the donks. So that's where it comes from.
But you're not necessarily a donk just because you do it.
Yeah. If you never donk bet, then you're also probably a donk. Think about that.
You can't win!
You're just probably a donk, really. By the way, I would say that the people who use the phrase donk most often are usually the worst poker players. I don't hear top-level poker pros calling other people donks pretty much ever.
Correct, yep.
But I do see a lot of people using it in the free roll observer chat.
Has Haig just limped in the cutoff?
Interesting play.
Well, Albig's folded the button. Action's on Lasse Frost in the small blind.
And this is not a terrible spot to limp, because you're just limping into, some short stacks who they can't afford to raise. So like if they're making a raise there, it's pretty much an all-in. And, they might not be wanting to risk their tournament life here, so fearing that you might be limping with aces, which he's probably not. But they don't know that, so yeah, I expect Haig to just fold immediately.
No, he wasn't setting the tarp.
No. No, he's just not doing that. He's just hoping like no one picks up on that.
I've fallen for that one before. I got the tarp set on me.
Oh no, they've done it to me plenty of times.
Addy says Harold does not get enough credit. He is a local at the Berlin Casino and he's dominating everyone there. He is capable of winning this. Peter tweets to say, be Toby Lewis. Do you want to be Toby Lewis, or would you rather be Dominik Nitsche?
I don't want to be Toby Lewis.
Okay. He's got an EPT title.
I don't, but I'm working on it. Maybe next week.
Addy says Harold doesn't get enough credit. You just read that one?
Yeah, we read that one.
Sorry,
yeah, no, he's been playing well. I said he's playing well. Still, he's just in an awful spot, being like right between the two chip leaders. There's really not much he's gonna do, like that he can do. So it's Haig here raising Daniel's big blind again. He's going for a min raise here. And it looks like Daniel's going to call.
Just call.
Yeah, I expect him to call here with most of his hands, because if he 3-bets, it looks just so strong, really. Like, there's no reason for him to 3-bet like King Jack, King Queen, you know, or like Queen Jack, or like all of those hands, or like sevens or something. Why would he 3-bet this, or like any pair, really? So
Check, check. Board gets pretty sloppy on the turn.
it's really fast check behind by Haig. I mean, I'm just wondering why he's not even considering c-betting here. Probably just means he has some kind of showdown value hands here that he's just happy to, you know, go to the river with. Doesn't want to get raised. And quick checks all around.
Ace Jack. 4's good.
Yeah, I mean, if your opponent is going to play like Haig did in this hand, then you can make these calls pre-flop. Because, you
Should
know,
Haig really be trying to put more pressure on
I mean, yeah,
a board
because like, as
that?
always, most hands miss most flops, and if you give too many free cards with your ace-high hands, then they're eventually going to beat you. I mean, he's not a huge favorite with ace-high there against any two cards, because like, what if the turn comes this and he comes out betting? Are you going to call? You know?
And when you say he's not a huge favorite, that's when they see all 5 cards. So
Yeah,
you want to prevent them from seeing all 5
you're
cards.
also letting him see another card, and even if he doesn't hit, he can still bet. It's like, really, if you check there, like, not much good is going to happen. He can put you on so much pressure. Especially, like, you know, with all the short stacks around and all that. If Daniel just bets the turn and river, what are you going to do? You know, it's just an awful spot.
Now, Graphical Nick, who is surrounded by about 78 monitors and several keyboards, has found time to tweet to let us know that maybe we could have a donk bet graphic ready for Monaco to go with the Gibbons graphic that Nick is currently working on. I would love that if every time someone Gibbons, we could actually have a graphic that came up.
I feel like us drawing massive amounts of attention to it in the commentary is probably enough.
So 4 minutes left on the level. I mean, Dominik, you saw the stacks at the start of the day. Are you surprised we've got through pretty much 2 full levels of poker and only lost 2 players? Possibly 3, because Pascal Voss has just moved all in.
Yeah, it's quite surprising, really, and especially given how the stacks are right now. People are just moving all in left and right, and here's the call.
Harold calls.
Harold called really quickly. He has ace-king.
So what's Voss got it in with?
What's of Voss up there?
Looks like he's live.
Pocket nines.
And this guy's just a bunch of nits. No, seriously.
But this is what it's taken to get it in.
Those are some really good hands, you know. If I have either of those hands with these stacks, I'm just so excited. Just give me like 3 times the chips and I'm getting it in. Yeah, no, that's just a massive cooler, all joking aside. Pocket nines there, easy shove. Probably like one of the easiest in the world. And Harold makes an even easier call.
So Voss needs the nines to hold. He's the player at risk.
That hand just played itself, yeah.
If the nines do hold and
And I
Voss
think they
survives.
realize that.
Harold's going to be left super short, by the way.
Floppies, Jack of Hearts, 7 of Hearts, 5 of Spades.
8 of hearts for the sweat. I know.
Nothing changed. Pocket nines is still ahead.
I like a queen of hearts. Nah, that's not as good. 10 of hearts.
And a turn card. The turn is a
Oh.
queen of diamonds. Now Pascal doesn't want to see the 3 remaining aces, 3 remaining kings, and the 10, and the river card.
Harold looking for an ace, king, or 10. It's an 8.
And
Nines hold, so Voss doubles up again. He's now up to 5 million in chips. He is now 3rd on the leaderboard, and Roman Harold becomes the super short stack with 910k, with the blinds going up in less than 3 minutes.
Voss has been playing kind of patient here. Like, we've only seen him show down solid hands, you know, like his Jack 10. It's obviously a fine shot. Then he showed down Ace King, and like, yeah, he's been playing very solid, and he moved up the leaderboard. You know, he played pretty well, I would think. You know, it pays off to be patient at this point. Because of ICM, you can't risk too many chips too light. And yeah, you think he did pretty well, and now he's a good shot. You know, 5 million is a whole lot of chips right now, because given how short the other ones are.
Well, don't forget Roman Herald did get down to 6 big blinds earlier at this final table and got that triple up when he picked up kings.
Yeah. We're just seeing a whole lot of coolers here.
I mean, I think just from what the play was like last night in the bubble, I figured that's what it was going to take today.
Yeah.
A lot of coolers.
So we're still 6-handed at the final table of the EPT Berlin main event.
Even when we have two players that have enough chips to play a flop and a turn and a river, it checks down a lot of the time. These guys are just, you know,
yeah.
There's a lot of money at stake.
Because Robert's trying to keep the pot small, you know, not risk too many chips. But maybe like you should change this up a little, because if he's getting called by like 10-4, as I've said, you can't really give that many free cards, because then they're making a good play against you.
Got to kick it up into gear.
Confirmation that this will be the last hand of the level. During the 20-minute break, things are going to get sexy on the final table. Oh yes, the green and black chips are coming. Everyone loves a bit of poker porn.
Yeah.
Alexander Helbig first to speak.
Is that a thing? Poker? How have I
Chip
never looked
porn,
for that?
chip porn.
Oh, chip porn.
Chip porn's huge.
Guess when it comes to chip porn, you'd like to be hung like Daniel Gay Pidoon, right?
Arthur Frost folds and decides he's going on break right now.
Pascal's like, oh, I can raise now.
But really, it's just not a very good spot to raise, because you have Pidoon right behind you, who can just make your life hell. Also, you have Roman Herald in the small blind, who's just like an absolute short stack.
Well, Pidoon has folded. Decision is on the short stack. Nope, he's going to wait. And Haig in the big blind.
Haig defends his big blind here.
Probably not defending too late, huh?
He's getting a great price, you know, he's only up against the min raise. There's a whole lot of hands you can defend there.
Check to the razor. Voss checks behind. He's got a spades on the turn.
Looks like it's going to be... Okay, here comes the stack. I was like, that's going to be a small bet.
That's a really big bet here by Haig. Very, very close to the side of the pot there. I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish with that, because if he's bluffing, like a smaller bet has the same effect, because it's like a 4 straight board, and it kind of smashes your range, and it also looks like Voss is ready to just give up. We'll see. I think there's a good chance Voss is just going to fold his hand. If he has like a king queen, you know, like Maybe a king jack he'd fold to that bet because it's like such a massive bet. Or like an ace, you know, like any kind of ace there. Yeah, it's a really good spot for Haig to just lead out with a bet there and pick up the pot.
So Voss folds. Haig wins the last hand of the level. Still 6 players remaining here at the EPT Berlin main event. And here's how they're stacked up as the blinds go to 100, 200 with a 30 ante. They're pretty shallow.
Yeah, I mean, like the chip leader has 46 big blinds. That's very, very shallow, yeah.
Dominik, thank you so much. Always
Yeah,
great
my
to have
pleasure.
the analysis of Dominik Nitsche on EPT Live. We're going to
Thanks,
continue the action here from the Berlin leg of the PokerStars.net European Poker Tour in around 16 minutes from now.